I'm very well indeed. How are you?
Hey, I'm not bad. First of all, I'm sorry.
What are you sorry?
Well, I'm sorry that you're here so early because, of course, you don't normally get out of bed till about 3 o'clock, comedians, do you?
Well, I used to be like that, but since I've started doing the show, I am up at 8 and I write till 8 o'clock, desperately trying to do jokes about the news. Believe me.
I think you've kind of got the same gig as Harry Hill, haven't you? Really, you're
very
just
similar. Yeah. Harry watches telly. I watch the news. That's the deal. Yeah, it's horrendous, but I mean it's good. But your brain is just full of. I'm sure you're the same. We sort of toil in similar areas because. Do you know so much trivia about the news? Just little tittle tattle from all the papers. I'm exactly the same. Just any little bit.
There's nothing more exciting, is there, than when it goes wrong and they make an idiot of themselves.
Yeah, well, you can just work with it. But there's such extraordinary stories. Like on yesterday's show, the way that ITV presented the news that Qatar won the World Cup was just amazing. Because I don't know if you saw it, but Qatar won the 2022 World Cup, and ITV showed a picture of a guitar and put a cross through it, and then a picture of a gutter and then put a cross through it, and then had a picture of guitar with a tick, and your brain just goes yes, because you can totally use that for comedic purposes, the way that that's been presented to us like we're children.
Hey, listen, I want to talk to you about you because I can't work out whether you're a sex symbol or not. You don't do anything for me, but I can tell that the ladies seem to have a little something for you.
Well, really? Yeah, I don't know. I don't regard myself as a sex symbol. My girlfriend certainly doesn't. I think she thinks I'm all right, but she finds it all. Yeah, well, what I do, I pop up in those sort of polls for kind of people who are weird looking that you sort of don't really want to admit that you quite like. So I was in, it's Heat Magazine's Weird Crush, and I was number 3. And, you know, there's an air of kind of, well, that's quite nice. But number 11 was the Go Compare man. So, you know, it's not a prestigious list by any stretch of the imagination.
Is it wrong to admit that Anne Widdecombe did that a little bit for me on that dancing programme?
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't take your eyes off her. She's out now, isn't she? She's finally gone, yeah.
Your career really has shot up to magnificent heights, and this is what amazes me about comedy today. You can go from being a working comedian in the clubs, let's face it, there's nothing less glamorous than that, to suddenly packing arenas. Congratulations.
Well, thanks very much. Weirdly, it is glamorous though. Like doing stand-up in clubs, there's nowhere I'd rather have been. Genuinely, I loved it. I've been doing comedy since I was 19, and you know, I've never really hated any of it. I always found it enjoyable, and I mean, the arenas are amazing, but comedy clubs are still fantastic places, and really, you know, really vital places.
I mean, there's two sides to it, though, isn't there? I mean, the arenas are going to pay well. I get that. Mm-hmm. But you can't really see your audience. I saw Michael McIntyre last year, and it was the last one I went to, and I don't think I'm going to go again because I was watching him on a screen, and I thought I might as well just wait for the DVD.
Yeah, but it sort of depends, really. It's like, because I watched Chris Rock in an arena, and he just like bombarded the audience, and it felt intimate because of his performance. So I guess it's kind of what you sort of bring to it. There's pros and cons to gigs that big, I guess. You know, the event is brilliant, but I can see what you mean about the lack of intimacy, but it's still wonderful. You know, it's still kind of a big, fun, booming gig.
Are you still at the point when you're wondering, should I buy this, should I buy that? Because obviously you're earning good money, you're on TV and all that stuff. Has it hit you yet that actually you're a big star and you can more or less buy what you want?
No, not at all. I don't, you know, I'm just, you know, I still regard myself as a student, really.
You weren't down there outside the Palladium, were you, last night?
I wasn't, no. Yeah, it's really unfortunate, that, isn't it? You know, it's just kind of, you're with their cause, and just a very few morons ruin it for everyone. But it's, yeah, you know, money's sort of a side effect of doing stand-up, but, you know, I don't really think about what I can buy or anything like that, you know.
Darren O'Brien does this programme quite a lot, and I'm one of his biggest fans, but yes. I always tell him the same as I'm going to tell you. I find Mock the Week very uncomfortable. Right. Less so since Frankie's gone, but it was so competitive at one point. Yeah. You managed to sneak in, but that's kind of tough, isn't it? Because everybody's heckling to try and get their jokes in first. Yeah, it's the thing about Mock is very similar to doing... it's a very similar atmosphere to backstage at a comedy club. It has that kind of who can, for want of a better phrase, who can wee the highest. It has that kind of sort of you're trying to top each other mentality. Is that a technical term? Let me write that down.
Yeah, exactly. But it's that kind of, you're sort of with your mates and you're trying to outgun each other. So I guess there's an air of competitiveness, but you know, I never really. I mean, it's sort of different, really, because obviously when you're doing it, you don't really see how it's perceived. Because I never found it that kind of competitive or edgy. I was just kind of getting on with doing my thing, you know.
I just watched the new Frankie Boyle programme last week. I was in a hotel and I was so disgusted by it. It's just totally inappropriate for me. I know that's what he's going for and his audience like it. You seem to be more mainstream and more friendly and certainly approachable. Is that deliberate?
I'm just who I am, really. I just kind of, you know, every comedian's different, and it just wouldn't work for me if I was all kind of edgy. In the same way, it wouldn't work for Frankie if he was all friendly. You know, Frankie does what he does, and people love it, you know.
I suppose they do, and that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to find a niche. So what is your niche, then, for anybody who hasn't seen you, outside of the news programme, which is a little bit different?
I don't know. I just stand up about anything that interests me. That's what I try and do. I try and talk about things that I find that I'm passionate about or I'm interested about, and try and make jokes about them, really. You know, I don't really have an agenda as such other than trying to be funny.
Are you born with that? Because, you see, I sit here and I talk about stuff and it's not really funny because I'm just talking about it, but you're able to put a slant on it. You see the world in a different way, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you just, like, I think most comics have... we're all outsiders to a degree. That's what's odd about becoming famous, is that any good comedian is never the big person in the room. They're always watching the room and seeing what's funny about the room, you know, it's social settings or in a cafe or whatever, and then you're funny about it later. Whereas when you're famous, people then go, come on, be funny now. And you're like, well, no, I don't really do that. I kind of watch and then observe and then take it away. So that's the kind of odd thing. I think comics are quiet and watch and think a lot more than people sort of give them credit for, you know. You have to spend a lot of time watching.
Well, it's the old thing, isn't it, about whether you've got to be odd to be a comedian, whether you've got to be an outsider to look at the world differently. I mean, You look normal, but you're saying you think different.
No, I'm just saying that just kind of that's what I've always found people very interesting, and I've liked. That sounds really pervy, but I like watching them, and I find people. I just find people fascinating. I find what they say interesting, and there's a lot of comedy in places like Tesco and stuff like that. So, you know, it'd be horrible to be in a situation where you were so famous that you couldn't wander around and hear somebody say something funny to someone else in a supermarket, because that's what I've always done. You know, I've kind of sort of watched people, you know.
And in terms of those who inspired you, who did you enjoy watching as a kid?
I really loved Billy Connolly, and then later people like Bill Hicks and Richard Pryor, but sort of also there's comedians like Daniel Kitson, Phil Kay, Ross Noble. There's loads, really.
Why hasn't Kitson made it bigger? Because he really should be a megastar.
Yeah, but that's his own decision, really, because he's very, very happy, I think. He's just he's an undiscovered genius that just kind of does his own thing, and you know, has no desire to do anything other than what he wants to do creatively, you know.
Have you got it in your head yet why people would leave their home, which costs them money, and then they have to get a babysitter, which costs them money, then they have to buy a ticket and a taxi, which costs them money, and then you're 9,000 seats later filling Sheffield Arena?
Yeah. No, of course I haven't. Yeah, I don't question those things. I don't think about anything like that. I just try and do what I do and see what happens. You know, I think as soon as you start plotting, you know, why you're interesting or why people like you or why you appeal to a certain demographic, I think that's the beginning of the end. You know, I just happen to do a job that I adore. I love writing jokes and performing, and fortunately, quite a few people sort of enjoy me doing it. But I'm aware of how lucky I am. You know.
Did you always stick out in the clubs? Were you always a bit exceptional?
No, you know, I used to do quite well, you know, but it just took me ages to get good. I was like gigging from like 18 to like 25 and doing like gigs six nights a week, and just loved it. And, you know, sometimes I've had great gigs, sometimes rubbish, and I think that's what happened, really, and just sort of just learn the trade. And, you know, really happy days, really happy memories, but some horrendous deaths down the years, you know. But that comes with the territory, you know.
I'm a huge fan of the Conan O'Briens and the Lenos and the Lettermans.
Yes.
I love an opening monologue. I love them to make funny what's happened that day.
Yes.
What always amazes me is how you turn that material around and learn it well enough to be able to perform it.
Yeah.
That I presume is your greatest challenge, isn't it? Thinking of the joke's one thing, but then putting a million jokes together to make a half-hour programme and not making it look like it's the first time you've said it is tough.
Absolutely, but that's the challenge of it. It's really exciting because you've got all this raw material of the news, and you have to select the tidbits that you think are funny, and then, like you say, just put it into it. The main thing is making it link and making it look like it's effortless, even though you've spent, I mean, my working week, I work like pretty much every day, like 8 till 8, writing jokes when I'm in a series. But the key is just to kind of come on telling you, hey. But I mean, weirdly, that's the release. That's the moment when it's all fun, because we record an hour of jokes, and the audiences that come to the show are great. So it makes it all feel worthwhile, just to perform it.
And you are bringing the news to a whole different market, a different audience.
Yeah. It's kind of, it always interests me, because we sort of do, like, for example, the lady from Chatham that rang up the 999 did you read the story? She reported that her snowman had been stolen, and I because I'd read it, I just assumed that everyone had heard about it, but we did this little graphic where she did the exact call, and it's just extraordinary, and the audience reacted in such a brilliant way. And it just made me realise, oh my God, they haven't seen this. So not only are they finding the story funny, but the jokes afterwards they're really going to love,
Some, though, you don't need to write anything. My 1010 this morning is Christmas crackers are now classed as low-grade fireworks. Retailers could be fined for selling crackers to anyone under 16 because of health and safety reasons. You almost don't need a punchline, do you?
They're beautiful, those stories. One of my favourite ones, like similar to that this year, there was a lady who was fined because she fed a duck white bread, and the ducks in that area only ate brown. And you just kind of think, it's just extraordinary. Sometimes you happen upon a story and you're like, it has to be a joke. And the photos are always so sad, because it was the woman holding up like wholemeal bread. Yes. and it's just, it just beggars belief, really. But we were really annoyed because we thought she was going to do an interview, that lady, so we chat about it on the show, but alas, it didn't come to fruition. But that's what we do brilliantly in this country. We do, quirky stories just leap out left, right and centre,
Hey, listen, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And
absolute
your
pleasure.
Tour is going everywhere. And closest to us, it's coming to Sheffield. But you're going to go and do all these huge arenas. What's your website so people can find out?
It's www.russell-howard.co.uk.
Oh, that's annoying. Who's the RussellHoward.com?
I don't know. Yeah, he's out there somewhere.
That's annoying, isn't it? You don't want that. Hey, listen, great to talk to you. And, of course, your BBC programme. I just read, I think it's just been recommissioned for about another 20 years, hasn't it, or something?
It is. We've got 2 more series in March next year and October next year.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Lend us a fiver. Russell Howard, no credit crunch there, doing the business on BBC Three and going up and down the country, coming to Sheffield in February. Great to talk to you, Russell.
Thanks, man. See ya.